from the All Indiana Podcast Network.
It's time for real conversation about the real issues that affect our communities.
Poverty, education, equality, and more.
This is Real Talk.
Real Talk with Rev Charles Harrison.
Welcome to Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network. I'm Rev Charles Harrison, and on this episode, we're going to be talking about the recent violence in Indianapolis over the last 12 days in our city. We have seen a surge in violence in the city of Indianapolis and in Lawrence, and sadly, we have had a 3-year-old boy killed. Welcome to Real Talk on the All Indiana Podcast Network. I am Reverend Charles Harrison. I am the senior pastor of Barnes United Methodist Church here in Indianapolis, and I am also the president of the board of the Indianapolis 10-Point Coalition. And for some people, you may not know what that is. We are a faith-based group comprised of churches in the Indianapolis area, primarily on the west side, that addresses the issue of urban youth violence as it impacts young men of color between the ages of 12 and 24 years old. We have been in existence now for about 25 years. I've been doing this work. So a lot of people know me because they see me on TV, and I'm often talking about the issue of violence in the city of Indianapolis. And I've been doing that for almost 25 years now in the city, talking about this issue. Sadly, in the last 12 days, we have had a difficult time in the city. It's no doubt about it. We have had 12 people who have been killed in the city of Indianapolis and Lawrence combined over the last 12 days. There's another person that was found dead, and there's a death investigation, and I'm not for sure if that has been publicized yet by the coroner's office, what the cause of death was. It did look like at the time that there was signs of trauma. So we could be at 13 homicides in 12 days in the city of Indianapolis. Right now, the numbers that I have for this year is about 142 homicides in the city. I know the city's numbers are a little lower than the numbers that I have been keeping. And I know that Rick Snyder from the FOP is keeping numbers too, as far as shootings, stabbings, and homicides in the city. So it looks like the 2024 numbers are similar to the 2023 numbers as far as homicides and shootings and stabbings. They're close. They're down from the 2020 and 2021 numbers. 2021 certainly was the record-breaking year of homicides in the city of Indianapolis, when we ended the year with about 272 homicides that year. So that's been the record-breaking year. In 2024, we're still on pace to eclipse 200 plus homicides, which would be for the 5th year in a row. And certainly I am concerned about where we are. I'm really concerned that we had a 3-year-old boy that was killed with a 22-year-old up around the 75th and Shaylin area in Indianapolis. Now, years ago, that was considered one of the safe areas in the city. We really didn't worry about, back in the day, anything really happening up in the 75th and Shaylin area. But that's not the case anymore. I've had conversations with IMPD, and the 75th and Shaylin area is now one of the hotspot areas in the North District of IMPD. That was an area that was considered safe, 10 10 years ago. But now the dynamics have changed in an area like 75th and Shadeland. You can really say the same thing about a lot of areas in the city of Indianapolis. Areas that used to be considered safe areas where we were not having shootings and homicides in the city, now we are. We're seeing a lot more homicides on the south side of Indianapolis. We're seeing a lot more shootings, stabbings. The same can be said for the north side of Indianapolis. We have always had problems in what we call the urban core. And in those areas, in the 25 years that I've been doing 10 Point, those areas have always been hot. When you talk about the Hallville area, when you talk about around the 29th and MLK area, when you get in to Crown Hill, used to be Highland Vicinity was hot. Used to be Mapleton Fall Creek. When you go on the east side of Indianapolis, when you get into the Martindale Brightwood area, 25th and Keystone, 34th and Keystone, 38th. And Sherman in about a mile radius, down at 10th and Rural in that area, about a 1 mile radius. You get over to 42nd and Post Road, which we just had 3 people killed. What was that, 8, 9, 10 days ago at 42nd and Post Road. It just happened to be across the street in the Lawrence area. If it would have been a little further south, those 3 homicides would have been included in Indianapolis' homicide. That's how close it is, and that's how volatile it is right now in the city when it comes to the level of violence that we are seeing in Indianapolis. I know the numbers are down a little bit from 2021 and 2020, but the numbers are way up compared to where they used to be when we talk about what the numbers used to look like in 2000 and 2012. So from about 2000 to 2012, we probably averaged about 96 murders a year. When you look at all of those years and combine the number of murders in each of those years, it came out to about 96 murders a year, about 114, 15 homicides a year, way down compared to where it is today. And what really concerns me in all the years that I've been doing this work, I think we have done a good job as the city in addressing gang violence and violence among cliques. And cliques are groups of individuals who some would call a gang, but they may be running a street where they're controlling the drug trafficking and they're armed up. It tends to be young men with guns. Many of those young men have an extensive criminal background. Some have not finished school, and they're living in hopelessness. They don't see a life beyond, where they live at, and that is sad. But I do think in all the groups and what IMPD is doing and all the grassroots organizations and faith-based groups, we have done a pretty good job in reducing, we haven't stopped it, but reducing the level of gang violence and clique violence in the city. I think, our struggle is always with the drug trafficking violence because it has become the underground economy in our city. And the drug trafficking is just everywhere. It's everywhere. It has spread now beyond the urban core. I think that's why you are seeing more homicides and shootings and stabbings in traditionally safe areas of Indianapolis, on the south side of Indianapolis, now on the north side of Indianapolis that used to be safe areas of the city. Those areas are not safe anymore because of the drug trafficking and also in the demographics in those areas. There have been changing demographics in those areas along with the drug trafficking and some of the problems that were occurring in the urban core. Now we're seeing them on the south side of Indianapolis and on the north side of Indianapolis. We're seeing some of that even further west, on the west side of Indianapolis. Certainly has always been on the east and the far east side of Indianapolis in certain areas, and that has really not changed much. But yet, drug trafficking, gang violence, and clique violence and robberies have always kind of fueled the violence that we're seeing in Indianapolis. But what really concerns me now is the level of interpersonal conflicts that we're seeing that is leading to violence. That has, in my opinion, dramatically increased. The lack of conflict resolution skills and people not really knowing how to handle their beefs, their arguments, their conflicts with others in an appropriate, healthy, nonviolent way is really concerning. I think it's leading more to domestic violence and also the interpersonal conflict violence that we're seeing that I think is spreading across the city. The shooting that happened at 42nd and Post Road, it was a conflict that started in another country. It started in Honduras, was brought here to America. That same conflict continued, and it led to 3 people ended up being shot and killed at 42nd and Post Road. We see this often in the city, where conflicts are causing people to pull out guns, to take out a knife, and commit a violent crime. And this is why I'm really concerned about the level of violence in the Indianapolis area. And I think we have to begin to look at the metropolitan Indianapolis area and central Indiana, because I think we're seeing violence spread. And what really troubles me, was what happened this week. Just a few days ago, earlier in the week, we had a shooting at 75th and Shadeland. Obviously, the young man in the vehicle, who was 22 years old, was the target. I'm not for sure the people who did the shooting knew that there was a child in there. But a 3-year-old was in the car. They opened up fire on the car, not only killing the 22-year-old, but killing a 3-year-old child. Now, this is what really bothers me today. Obviously, the individual or individuals involved in that homicide now know that a 3-year-old child was killed. I believe that there are people in the city who knows who committed this horrendous crime of killing a 3-year-old child. Armani is now dead. A 3-year-old has been killed. Nobody, to my knowledge, has come forward. Now, maybe somebody has come forward and has given information to IMPD that I'm not aware of, and I hope that has happened. My hope was, and I went public with this, that the person or persons involved in this horrendous crime would have turned themselves in. How can you sleep with yourself and you know that you fired the bullets that killed a 3-year-old child? In the old days, in the 1970s and 80s, and if someone would have done that, the community would not have accepted that because there was a code in the street. Even back then in the 70s, there was a code in the street. You didn't hurt the elderly, you didn't hurt females, and you did not hurt children. And if you did that and crossed that line, then the community would deal with you, or the community would drag you to the police station and turn you in. Or something else would happen to you if you did not turn yourself in. We're living in a different time today, where now I've heard young people say that when someone is killed that's innocent, it is a casualty of war. Well, what war are you talking about? It is a casualty of war. What war? What war has been declared? You tell me that it's okay to kill a 3-year-old child? And you're saying to me it is a casualty of war? No. This is wrong. And whoever killed Armani, the 3-year-old, and the 22-year-old, you ought to turn yourself in. If you know who did it, you ought to provide the information to someone who can get it to law enforcement so that we can bring this person or persons in who was involved in this, bring them to justice. This is what the problem is. The problem is we have too many shootings, too many stabbings in our community, too many people who are injured by it or killed by it, and the shooters and the perpetrators of these violent acts are not turned in, and they continue to be perpetrators of violent crimes. We should not feel comfortable as a city in knowing that we still have someone walking around that is responsible for killing a 3-year-old boy. No, that's unacceptable. To the black community, it ought to be unacceptable to us. We have had too many young black men, young black children, that have been killed since 2015, and sadly, all of those cases are still unsolved. That's terrible. That's awful. That's unacceptable. That we are allowing our children to be brutally murdered and no one has been held accountable. That's why we have seen a dramatic increase in the level of violence in Indianapolis going back to 2015 up until 2024, where we are now seeing the highest level of violence in the history of Indianapolis over almost that 10-year period of time. This is troubling. And in the black community, we have to address this issue. Because 8 out of 10 homicides normally involve us. We're the victim of it. And sadly, the perpetrator of it. Now, I know there are people in the community that get upset with Rev Harrison because I talk about this and I talk about the issue of black on black violence. And I'm going to keep talking about it no matter how upset you get, because somebody has to tell the truth. Somebody has to be willing to speak up and to talk about what we don't want to talk about. Now, if a police officer would have killed that 3-year-old child in a police action shooting, all hell would have broken loose in the black community in Indianapolis. We would have had thousands of people at the prayer vigil rather than 100. We would have had leaders all over the city holding press conferences speaking out against a police action shooting that killed a 3-year-old. But yet, when a 3-year-old is killed by us, we won't say nothing. There have been no press conferences. 3-year-old child has been gunned down. No one in the black community has held a press conference. I'm not for sure if there's been a leader in the city other than me who has said something publicly about it. Now, I ask the question, why? Why won't we say something when a 3-year-old child is killed, but yet we will hit the streets when there's a police action shooting that we think is unjustified that kills one of us? What's the difference? Why is there not an outcry that a child has been gunned down in a car? Where are the voices? Where are the voices that are clamoring for justice? Where are the voices of outrage that are demanding that the individual involved in this heinous act has not turned themselves in? Why are we so quiet? And I watched the father yesterday cry at the prayer vigil of the fact that now he has to bury his 3-year-old son. I watched the family of Armani yesterday at the prayer vigil. You could see the pain and the grief and the disbelief in this family yesterday. They're having to let balloons go because a 3-year-old child has been killed. I heard the grandmother on TV the other day pleading for the person or persons involved to turn themselves in. The grandmother of Armani. I'm troubled. Matter of fact, I'm troubled by the whole city. That there's quietness in the whole city concerning this. And you know what's going to happen? If the police don't solve this, the people who are the perpetrators of this are going to feel like that this is something that can be done and there's no accountability. The next time someone gets mad at someone and they want to kill someone, they don't care who's in the car because they know that even if they shoot in the car, there's not going to be an outcry from the community and no one's going to be held accountable. We have too many children over the last 9 or 10 years who have been gunned down in the streets of Indianapolis, and I can only think of one child, which was a 1-year-old female, where we got the perpetrator because someone from the streets who knew who did it turned them in. Roderick Payne Jr., an 8-year-old, was killed in his own home after eating dinner, watching TV. He walked to the kitchen and gunshots went through the window and killed an 8-year-old in his own home in front of his mother. 10-year-old Deshaun Swanson was killed playing outside at a repast after a funeral of a loved one, and they was gunned down, 10-year-old, in a drive-by shooting. That case is still unsolved. Now we have Armani Booker, 3-year-old, shot down, killed in a car. Are we going to be quiet about this, Indianapolis? Somebody knows something. And for those of you who may be aware of who did this, I appeal to you to do the right thing. Because if this was your family member or your child, you would want someone to turn in the person that killed your child. Everybody that is watching me right now live on X, I want you to retweet this because this needs to spread. This message needs to get out to the whole community. We cannot have killers in our city who kill indiscriminately thinking that they can get away with it and there's not going to be any accountability. And then you kill a child? No. You need to be held accountable. And I'm asking you that if you know who pulled the trigger and shot in the car at 75th and Shaylin and killed Armani Johnson, Armani Booker, and Mr. Johnson, I'm asking that you turn that person in. Do the right thing. No, we cannot accept this. Because what's happening is, because we are accepting all of this violence, now 200 homicides has become the new norm in Indianapolis. Matter of fact, in Marion County. And if we're not careful as a city, in a few years, we're going to now be approaching 300 homicides a year. If we don't get the bad people off the streets, if we don't get the killers off the streets, if we don't send a message to everybody in this city that violence is unacceptable, and certainly we're not going to let you continue to gun down our children. That is a line that is too far that you have now crossed. We don't want you killing anybody. But when you start messing with our children too, that is a line that you have crossed that we cannot accept. I'm asking everybody, every citizen in Indianapolis and in central Indiana, the outcry needs to be loud. We need to put pressure on our elected officials. More needs to be done. They need to be speaking out about what happened at 75th and Shadeland. I'm hoping the mayor says something. I'm hoping that council members say something. I'm hoping that clergy say something. I'm hoping that community activists say something. If we're going to raise hell about police action shootings, we certainly ought to raise hell about a 3-year-old boy being gunned down. We cannot live in a society where people have no moral compass and no regard for the sanctity of human life, where they feel like that they can kill indiscriminately and will not be held accountable. That's unacceptable. We cannot accept that as a city. And I'm not going to be quiet about it. No matter what y'all say about me, no matter who y'all complain to about me, I'm not going to be quiet about it because it is wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong for us to be silent about this. It's wrong for us not to talk about this. It's wrong for us not to hold each other accountable. Regardless of the color of the skin of the child, no child should be the victim of senseless violence. That is a line that we ought to say cannot be crossed by anybody. No, we don't want no violence. No, everybody's life is important. That's why we got to do more as a city to end this madness. This is madness. I've been waking up for the last 12 days and somebody's been killed. Somebody's been shot or injured. Mother was shot in her own bed sleeping. No. You can't be safe in your own home no more. Because people are going to start shooting indiscriminately? No. You know family members that you have that are off the chain. And then I want to get into the family members who have guns around your home and you don't secure those guns, and we now have children that are playing with these guns and shooting and injuring or killing themselves. Yeah, we ought to hold you accountable, parents, because you ought to know better. Nobody's trying to take away your gun, but if you're going to have a gun, secure that gun so a child cannot get to that gun and shoot themselves. Whether it's you, mom, or whether it's you, dad, or mom, or your boyfriend, secure those guns. We have children losing their life in this city, and this just makes me just want to cry. I do. Yesterday, I wanted to break down and cry. I'm watching these family members release the balloon or balloons for a 3-year-old child. I wanted to cry. I have 4 children. I cannot imagine being in their place, in their situation, and having to bury a 3-year-old child because they were gunned down because of senseless violence. And I would hope that I would not have to face and deal that, me and my wife and my family alone. I would hope that the whole city would stand with us. The whole Central Indiana community would stand with us. No, this is unacceptable. And I pray and I hope Indianapolis and the metropolitan Indianapolis area that we will say enough is enough. No, this is enough. We cannot accept this. Once again, if you know who did this, I'm asking you, even if you reach out to me, 317-281-3035. Give me a call if you don't want to call the police, because I'm a tell. Because the person or persons that killed Armani Booker need to go to jail. You're going to fire shots in a car and kill a 22-year-old and a 3-year-old. No, you don't need to be walking among us. I know I'm a minister, and the Bible says you got to reap what you sow. Yeah, we'll be there for you in jail and do jail ministry to help save your soul. But you must be held accountable for killing that child and that 22-year-old. No, you cannot walk the streets of Indianapolis. No, because you're too dangerous. Because you know now that you killed that boy. Do the right thing and turn yourself in. I'm asking everybody that's watching this live now or will watch this, I'm asking you to retweet this. I'm asking you to spread the word. We need to bring justice for this 3-year-old. We need to say with a loud voice, this is unacceptable. Enough is enough. We're not going to tolerate this. Let your elected officials know how you feel, because we need to hear from them. They cannot remain silent. They need to speak with one voice that this is not going to be accepted in Indianapolis. We cannot tolerate this. I'm believing for better days, but we will not have better days in this city until we get these killers off the streets. I don't want to just put people behind bars. No. There are hundreds of us groups out here that are trying to help people get on the right path. But once you decide to pull the trigger and you kill someone, then you have crossed the line. And now we got to deal with you in a different way. If you are the one that killed Armani, the 3-year-old, turn yourself in. If you know who did it, turn them in. And let's do the right thing. This is Rev Harrison on Real Talk. I hope you have enjoyed my conversation today with you. I want this city to be better, but it's going to take all of us to be better, to make it better. There are a lot of different factors that is leading to all of this senseless violence. And I believe it's going to take all of us working together to address all of these root causes that ends this madness, because it is madness, so that we can make this a safer and better city for all of the residents, so that we will not have to get on a podcast and talk about a 3-year-old being killed or a 22-year-old being killed, that there will be better days ahead for all of the families in Indianapolis. If you like this podcast, I ask that you would subscribe to it. I ask that if you are watching it on X, that you would retweet it now. And you can also go on the Indiana Podcast Network, and my show, Real Talk, is there. I ask that you go check it out, and I ask that you retweet that too, share that, and share it on Facebook and other social media sites, because we got to have a real conversation in this city concerning the violence. We got to bring these numbers down. We first got to get them under 200 homicides a year. But these numbers are way too high in the city of Indianapolis and in Marion County in general. We got to get them down. It's going to take all of us to do that. So this is Rev Harrison on Real Talk. I pray that you have a blessed and you have an awesome day. Thank you for joining me.
This is Real Talk with Reverend Charles Harrison.
Be sure to like and subscribe to this podcast.
And be sure to check out other great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Online now at allindianapodcast.com.